Hey guys, this is Chris Powell coming at you with some guidelines for some schooling bass. There's nothing more exciting than catching a bunch of schooling bass, especially when they're stacked up and concentrated and you and a buddy can catch them almost every cast. True schooling bass are a lot different than your mat grass bass. They're different from your ledge and deep brush pile bass. They're different than your residential bass that like to stay in the backs of coves all year long. Mostly the bass that I'm talking about travel in packs of 50 or more. They're normally in that 3 pounds or smaller range. Every now and then you may catch a 4-pounder. I'm not saying that you won't find a group of 10 or more 6 and 7 pounders that are taking advantage of some dumb shad that have schooled up around a creek channel bend or something. Those bigger bass are usually residential bass and they're not going to travel hundreds of yards a day to keep up with groups of shad. The best thing to remember about schooling bass is they move around a lot. There doesn't have to be any structure or cover to hold them there. They can be busting the snot out of shad in 40+ feet of water. All they do all day long is follow bait. You find them in the backs of coves, and if you catch them or not, chances are the very next day they can be all the way at the mouth of the cove. Fishing pressure has little to do with it. Even if the mouth of the cove is hundreds and hundreds of yards away, they're just following bait. Schooling bass are normally not very shy. My wife and I have had them jump in the boat with us. We've had them pin balls of shad up against the side of the boat and just eat the heck out of them. Secondly, where to locate these schooling bass. It needs to be a schooling lake. So get on a fishing forum, find out where there's a schooling lake near you that bass are known for frequently schooling. Next is time of year. Early summer all the way to late fall, you can typically find schooling bass if you're at a schooling lake. The easiest way is to start way back in a main contributory and look for active feeding fish on the surface. When you locate schooling bass on your graph, you want it to look like Wolverine just came by and scratched up your graph really bad. Keep looking for them all the way out of the cove into the main lake. Certain times of year, you can find them on the main lake near main lake points that have a creek or a river channel nearby. If you locate some bass and they're not yet active, but there is bait there, you may want to stick around for a little bit. More times than not, your lure or even your boat will spook shad, and that can trigger bass into a feeding frenzy, and you can have a heck of a day. So now that you have found the feeding bass, they're schooling, they're busting on top of the water, what baits do you throw? Most people, they see bass schooling on top of the water, they're gonna go for a topwater. That's great if they're aggressively feeding. But I have experienced days that bass are so keyed in to the bait fish that they're eating, you have to match the hatch exactly or you're not gonna get bit. I have had days where you can seriously throw your lure and hit them on top of the head with it and almost knock them out, but they're not gonna eat it because it doesn't resemble what they're feeding on. The best thing to do is get close enough to where you can see the size and color of the bait fish that they're eating and try to match it to a T. This will probably matter more in clear water lakes. The baits that have worked best for me is a swim bait. Just a little 3-inch Strike King swimming caffeine shad. I've even had days to where the bait fish were so small that I had to downsize to just a little bitty swim bait. I mean, man, this thing is about 1 inch long. If I get to a point and they really won't commit to my swim bait, I will follow it up with a jerk bait. Again, you gotta match the hatch, just whatever size it is. If the shad are not this big, Rapala, they'll even make, I believe this is a size 8, and it's a little bit smaller jerk bait. Next, I'll even throw a Fluke. I will fish this differently. I will sometimes fish this like a jerk bait. Other times I will throw it out there and I'll make it dance on top of the water, trying to make it look like a fleeing shad. If the shad aren't this big, maybe go to a Fluke junior size and do the same retreat. If they are aggressive enough to eat a topwater, I'll do a popper or I'll even do a spook. If the water's really dirty and I feel like they need some vibration to actually hone in on my lure, or maybe there's just a lot of bait fish in the area and my lure just needs to stand out, I will fish a square bill or even a lipless crankbait. I'll keep my rod tip up and just try to keep it really high in the water column. Now, another thing I will throw, and it's got to be if they're super aggressive, I will throw an Alabama rig. Again, I have experience in the past where an Alabama rig is just too much. You know, all the wires, especially in the lake that I fish, the water's pretty clear. So I believe they can see that, so they're just kind of turned off by it. All right, guys, that's it for your guidelines on schooling bass. Please subscribe. Check out my website for guided trips. Thanks for watching.